Hi, thank you for joining me today. I'm Kimberly Bennett with Inside Note Naturally. I am a doctorate of natural medicine, a certified homeopath, holistic nutritionist. I specialize in medication damage, pathology, and disease processes, and I want to share some fun seminars as well as a few serious ones because I want to get to the guts of some myths and some truths that are on the market. Today we're going to start with detoxifying and cleansing the body. The reason I've chosen this as my start point is because there's so much garbage on the market. And there's products that I had even today brought into my office by clients that say detoxify, and there wasn't a single item in it that would have done supporting for the detoxification of the body. There wasn't milk thistle, there wasn't sea salt, there wasn't any berberine, like there was nothing that would have supported the cleansing process in the body. So please learn your contents of your products that you're looking for, understand what cleansing is, do it safely. And today I'm going to show you a few things about how to read the body and why you may or may not need to cleanse. The one thing I want people to be really cautious of is safety, because so many people do cleanses and then they end up coming to me afterwards because they've done some damage to the colon or they've exacerbated their bodies. So not everybody needs detoxing. Some people's systems just need rebuilding and a little bit of nurturing and a little bit of kindness. So please don't buy into the mass media and the marketing that's out there. So what are the toxins in our environment? What risks are they to us? We're looking at toxins specifically that are affecting the organisms of the body. We're looking at poisons that can be natural or man-made, and we're looking at chemicals. The biggest thing with chemicals right now is the forever chemicals. So we have to be cautious of what we're putting into our bodies through what we consume, whether it's tobacco, alcohol, caffeine. And of course, when we're drinking water, are you using BPA-free plastics? Food colorings, preservatives, they're all considered chemicals because they are foreign to our body. There are 75,000 toxic chemicals on the market, and there are over 700 in our water, as well as 400 in human tissues. Now, those are old stats. I know that they've increased since I actually wrote this seminar originally. So we know that things are not getting better, they're actually getting worse. DDT. TDT has not been used since the 40s, and we are still seeing residuals of it in our food chain. In butter, in lamb chops, these are animal foods. So we know that the animals that are eating off the land, even though they might be pasture raised, are getting DDTs in the food. And it comes through from the atmosphere because the atmosphere picks up the chemicals and moves them. DDT does not break down permanently. It breaks down into smaller components. So we end up with it in our food chain and of course in our bodies. Here I'm going to just jump off a moment just so that, oh, maybe I can't. No, I can't. Okay. So caffeine is a major, I'm going to call it sport for most Americans. People live for their coffee. Now, while coffee has its value, it also has a dysfunctional component to it for the brain. And so here we can see that spider web, which normally is beautifully formed and symmetrical and strong, will become quite chaotic with the consumption of caffeine. The same with benzodrine, which is a chemical that people take. So we want to make sure that if we're consuming things, that the body knows how to handle it. Some nervous systems cannot tolerate any type of caffeine. It doesn't matter what the source is. And while there are a lot of promoters for caffeine, and because of the benefits it's got for stimulating the adrenals and getting people moving. And for some people, it actually supports with brain focus. It does have a side effect to it, and it depletes the probiotics of the intestine. It increases the acidity of the body as a metabolic byproduct, and it reduces vitamin mineral absorption. So what type of shape does your body have? According to that shape, you'll notice that there's things going on. So not everything is toxins. Our fat cells are meant to protect us with collecting toxins and absorbing them. That's why they expand and soak up the toxins. But not all fats are there for the same reason. It could simply be that we are dealing with circulatory issues. It could be hormone issues. Where we're holding it on our body, like if it's a square type of structured body, we're looking at testosterone issues. And if it's in the abdomen, and we're looking at pancreatic issues. If we're looking at the round fluffy that a lot of women go through in menopause, then we're looking at estrogen. And the reason estrogen is such a big factor is because as it drops, the cortisol levels go up and go into fat retention. What is the chiropractor always adjusting? This can be a great indication of what's going on in your body. Is it the upper spine? Is it the thoracic spine? Is it the lumbar spine? Those areas each correlate to different organ functions. And as the vertebrae pinch the nerves, then the organs become dysfunctional. So if your chiropractor is constantly fixing a certain part of your spine, you've got to look at what's happening to the organs of that area. So I've got a little bit of humor here for you. Kathy's a little strip joke that I used to watch, follow all the time. And she says, I'm going to eat high protein. And her friend says that. And Kathy comes back, well, it's artery clogging, saturated fat, excess protein, leaches calcium from the body. And her friend says, well, then I'm going to eat mostly fish and soy. And Kathy comes back and says, well, then you've got to worry about mercury poisoning and unsafe PCB levels and gastrointestinal issues. Her friend comes back, well, then I'll go with veggies and a fruit platter. And Kathy says, well, then you've got to worry about toxic metals and GMOs and, of course, wax-encased pesticides. So her friend says, well, then we're going to just have a brownie. And Kathy says, well, at least we know what we're eating. So that is the American diet, unfortunately, and that is what we're dealing with. So any extreme diet is never going to serve you long term. You want to look at balance. You want to know that you're serving to support the cell formation, which requires a protein and a fat. And you want to make sure you're serving to produce energy, which can be from fats, proteins, and as well carbohydrates. They're our main fuel source. So anything that's extreme is not going to provide you all of those in an equal balanced way. One of the best diets you could actually choose, if you were going to choose a diet, would be the Mediterranean diet, because it has your healthy fats. It's got a 70% vegetable portion, if not more, and it's got a small amount of animal proteins, which are lean and good quality. So we never want to do anything extreme where we end up with long-term damage. Let's look at the bottom of your shoes. This is a great way to indicate whether we need some support in our body. Are you walking to the inside, the outside, the toes, or the heels of your foot? Well, if you're walking to the outside of your foot, you've got to look at liver and gallbladder issues. If you're walking to the inside of the foot, you've got to look at intestinal and reproductive issues. If you're walking to the heel of your foot, you've got to look at your kidneys and your lower back function, as well as the tip of the toe, which is the nervous system. And so just by looking at your shoes, you can see the systems that need support. It doesn't mean they need detoxing, it means they need support. Reflexology is also another great way to see what's going on in your body. Do you have tender parts in your feet? When you're walking, do you find that they're sore in certain parts, even if you've in bare feet, because that's when you tell the truth about your foot function. Each part of your foot has a correlation to organs, just like your spine does. And so we want to look at the part that's tender. Is it your toe, which is more to the glandular area? Is it the center of the foot, which is more intestinal? Or is it to the back, which is more to the reproductive system? What's happening with your fingernails? Now, unfortunately, a lot of women these days are doing acrylics and they're damaging their nail beds. But if you actually let your nails grow out and let them become strong again, let the air get to them, then you'll start to see what your nails can tell you. So in the case on the bottom picture here, we actually have a person who went through several chemo treatments. Every time he had a chemo treatment, one of these lines formed. So with each treatment, we develop this structure of lines on the nails. On the top picture, we've got a parasitic indication. And so what happened is we actually put clear nail polish on this person's nail, and then we waited a couple days, and that black mark moved over to the other hand on the same nail. And so we took the nail polish off the one nail, and it moved back. So we knew parasites were moving from one part of the body to another. And it was always the same set of organs. So reproductive, kidneys, large intestine, small intestine, heart. So each of your fingers represents a different system and organ function. It's quite a complex way of analysis, but it's a really brilliant way of analysis. So people who have clubbing, we know that there's going to be inherited pulmonary issues. People who have the spooning, we know there's going to be inherent anemia issues. Vertical lines, horizontal lines. Horizontal lines are Bow's curves, that's lymphatic issues. Vertical lines are structural weaknesses. Do you have spotting, which could be hydrochloric acid or zinc deficiencies? So you want to pay attention to all of those different marks. The shape of your nail, are they flat? Are they flared? Are they really rolled? Those are all different indications for health in your body. What shows up on your tongue? Is it really thick and smooth? Is it really thin and patchy? Some people have a lot of really deep crevices. If they're significant all over the tongue, that's actually an indication for diabetes. Through the bottom right-hand one, we've got an indication for ulcerative intestinal systems. In the next picture, here, we've got issues that are indicated through the tip of the tongue, which would be heart. And on the bottom slides, we've got a lot of yeast showing up. The top slide, number 1B, actually, if you look to the back of that tongue, you'll see the bumps on the very back. That's actually an indication for reproductive issues. So that if it's a male, we'd be looking at possibly prostate issues. And if it's a female, we're looking at cysts, fibroids, things like that. What is your face telling you? This is a great way of understanding what's going on in our body, because a lot of people think acne is all hormone. It's not. So the different parts of our body, our face, are telling us different organs and systems are dysfunctional. So if we look at our face, our chin is hormones, the jawline is lymphatic, the forehead is small intestine, we've got the kidneys and the liver, we've got the stomach. All of those different parts of our body, as eruptions happen, whether it's broken blood vessels, whether it's rosacea, cystic acne, those can all be different locations, and they will indicate different systems. So not everything is hormones on the face. Iridology is another great way to tell if your body's functioning well, to see if you've got a lot of chemical deposits, to see if you've got any amount of nervous system issues, to see if you've got any organ dysfunction. The key here is understanding what all of those marks represent. And all of these different systems that we're looking at, whether it's the spine, whether it's the tongue, whether it's the face, whether it's the nails, these go back hundreds of years. So it's not new medicine. This is actually traditional medicine. So the key here is recognizing that your body actually can tell you exactly what's going on. It can't run blood labs, but it can definitely give you an indication of where to start. So in iridology, we're looking at the depth of the little pockets that are forming through the layers of the iris. We're looking at system function, and we're looking at organ function. Your left side is not the same as your right, because you've got organs that are bilateral as well as organs that are equal on each side. You might have dysfunction on one side of the thyroid, but not on the other. So then you'll go for labs. Your labs will say, hey, it's all good. And yet one side is picking up the slack for the other side. So you end up with a hypo response. So here's a couple of iridology pictures for you to see. The bottom one is, it's actually a pretty decent, strong blue lymphatic eye with a decent fiber structure. The challenge that we've got is that it's got a weak adrenals, as well as weakness in the spine on this one. And in the top one, we've got a weak bowel with some congestion around the nervous system, and that causes weakness in the rest of the systems. We've also got a chemical deposit here. So there's, you've got to watch where your chemical deposits are, because this one's above the heart, so we'd be paying attention to that one. Here we've got an arterial ring, so that is hardening of the blood vessels, as well as a lipid on the top image. The lipid shows an indication of gallbladder dysfunction. So those are really easy to see when you look in your eyes in the mirror. And then on the bottom, of course, we've got a mixed eye, but it's got nerve rings. So that's a person that overthinks, that can't get off the treadmill in the night. Their brain just keeps going. Elimination. Let's look at the elimination systems of the body, because people think the bowel is the only system that eliminates, but it isn't. So our skin is a very, very important elimination system. We're meant to sweat through our lymph glands. And then also through the respiratory system, our lungs. We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, so there's a constant exchange happening and elimination. We have nasal membranes, people that are discharging and constantly either coughing up stuff or runny nose. That's an indication, especially if it's a runny nose, of histamine activity in the intestine. The body's pushing stuff out. So we don't want to stop that with an antihistamine. We want to actually help the body eliminate it. Steam, help to, you can use essential oils to help move some of that out. And change your diet, of course, so you're not putting the allergens in. The urinary tract, very important. A lot of people hold their bladder for far too long and they build up bacteria in the urinary tract. And so then they end up developing cystitis because of the constant erosion that happens with the bacteria. And then, of course, the reproductive system. So in some of my seminars, the men will say, well, my wife's responsible for that. Well, she's not. So we are all responsible for our own bodies. Ejaculation for men is very, very important for the prostate. There's actually a lot of studies that correlate the frequency of ejaculation to the incidence of prostate cancer. That is a system that has to have the pipes emptied every once in a while. And so that is a male's responsibility. The same with women, vaginal dryness, atrophy of the vaginal canal. That is an indication that the tissues are being damaged. So it does need to be corrected and addressed for long-term health. The bowel. So this is our biggest septic tank of the body. There is no metal sleeve on the bowel. And so everything that goes in the bowel goes in and out of the bloodstream. This is where leaky gut happens. This is where proteins pass the intestinal lining and go into the bloodstream and cause a lot of inflammation. We want to pay attention to what we're putting into our body so that what's moving through it does not damage the organs around us, around the body. The average person carries 7 to 25 pounds of waste, and they've done autopsies with as much as 50 pounds of waste. So if you've got a belly, you want to make sure it's not hard and full of waste. The bigger incidence with that is people that eat too much animal protein. So this is when veganism really took off. But animal proteins are not the problem. It's the portion that's the problem. Are you chewing your food well enough? And we'll get on to that in the next slide. So are you chewing your food well enough? The first line of digestion is in the mouth, where you're chewing your food. That whole saying where you should chew each piece 30 times actually stands true because of the saliva and the enzymes in the saliva. On your tongue, you actually have type 2 taste receptors, which are part of the immune system. And so they're actually working as you take in foods as well. As you swallow your food, it goes into the esophagus. The more it's broken down, the easier it's going to move through. And then it gets to the stomach. The stomach's high in hydrochloric acid. That hydrochloric acid is really important for the immune system as well because of H. pylori and other bacteria, but also for breaking down the proteins. And as the proteins can sit in there as much as 4 hours, and ideally not, you're going to move into the duodenum and into the small intestine. Now, as you go through these different stages of the small intestine, you're going to, the body releases different enzymes to support the digestive processes of each step. If your gallbladder is not releasing bile, you're not going to emulsify fat. So you're going to be deficient in fat-soluble vitamins like A, E, D, and K. If you're not releasing pancreatic juices, you're not going to digest carbohydrates properly. So all the steps in the digestive tract are very important. As you get through the small intestine, the transit system goes from small to large, and there's the appendix. That's the catch basin for unhealthy bacteria. It also protects the intestine from the large intestine moving bifidum back up into the small intestine where the lactose belong. And then we end up with an environment called SIBO. And so you want to make sure that your bacteria stays in each compartment, but that your appendix is doing its job. So people with their appendix removed don't have that safety net and that catch basin anymore. Anybody who doesn't have a gallbladder anymore are generally deficient in their fat-soluble vitamins unless they're using something like artichoke root or bile salts to support that digestive and absorption process. The bowel. The bowel has over 400 types of bacteria in it. There are healthy ones, there are unhealthy ones, and they all have this little orchestra that they play between them, and everyone's kind of fighting for power of the castle. We have bacteria that actually forms toxins. We have bacteria that forms vitamins, like the B vitamins. So we have the good guys and the bad guys, and it is a constant orchestra of power between them. So as you do cleansing, if you are doing laxatives, then you are wiping out everybody, all right? And generally, what people don't realize is you're not wiping out the bad guys because they actually generally have a stronger hold than the good guys. And so things like yeast actually just have a stronger root hold, and they're like dandelions where if you don't pull that root out, they just go deeper. So you want to make sure that when you're doing cleansing, especially if it's in the bowel, that you're using a great cross-section of strains to replant that bowel, but also that you're using things like probiotics that have support with caprylic acid and grapefruit seed extract, and oil of oregano to really kill off the bacteria. We don't want to kill off everything, like I said, with laxative. We want to use fiber to support moving the unhealthy guys out, and to also feed the healthy bacteria as a prebiotic. Water. Most of my clients do not drink enough water, and I sit on their little shoulders and I'm harping at them all the time, drink your water. Our brain is 90% water, the blood is 83% water, muscles are 75% water, and bones are 22% water. And so when you are not hydrating properly, your brain can't do its job. You'll feel lethargic, your joints get achy. It's so simple, just drink water. Water is required for all the system functions as well as detoxification and for bowel motility. So hydration is key to function. When you're drinking your water, you want to make sure that you're drinking a filtered water. There's a lot of toxins in our water, unfortunately, as we saw before. So we want to make sure that we're not consuming the chlorine. We don't want that fluoride, which damages our thyroid and pineal glands. We don't need lead. We don't need copper. So we want to make sure that we're using a filtered system. We're also needing to have filters on our showers and our tubs. So any type of water that you're consuming has to be filtered. If you're using distilled water, you want to make sure that you're adding your minerals back in, because otherwise you will have damage long term with the leaching of minerals from your bones. One of the really cool books that I read years ago was written by Masaru Emoto, and what this is relevant to is water in our body and how emotions affect that. And so our bodies being over 70% water, we actually have to look at, okay, so how is that influenced by our environment? What's happening with emotional toxins, and how does that affect our body? And here what he does is he takes pictures of water crystals and he puts words next to them. And what they do is they actually form a really beautiful crystal, or they form a deformed crystal. And you'll see, as if you read the book, or I think he's even had a video before he passed, on how the emotions affect the structure. And so you've got happy versus unhappy in this slide. The top is happy, the bottom is unhappy. We've got the exposure to SARS. So of course there was a lot of fear around SARS. There was a lot of damage to the respiratory system. And so we've got to look at what does that do to our physiology as a result. How about teamwork? Does it matter if you're told to go and do something alone, or if you have a team that wants to support you? Or instant food versus mom's home cooked food? I know that if I ever get to go home cooked food, or even my husband feeding me, he's brilliant at cooking home food. So what happens when you feel that love from somebody caring for you and making a home cooked food versus eating something that's fast food and thrown together by somebody who really doesn't care about their job? It affects the blood, it affects the water cells in our bodies. Our handwriting. Now, the handwriting is actually an interesting one because a lot of people will say, well, I write backwards because it's left-handed. Well, it depends how you were trained, but if you're writing to your natural hand, dominant hand, then you've got to look, are you writing forward? Are you writing in the past? Are you writing in the current present time? Are you pressing really, really hard? Are you that stressed? Are you skipping alphabets when you're writing, or jumping over spaces where you're not completing the script? One of my greatest concerns with kids these days is they're not even taught script. And so they're losing that hand control where they're not even able to write anymore. So that's actually something that's really great for parents. If you can take the time to just teach your children how to write script, it's actually a good skill, and it tells you a lot about what's going on in their bodies emotionally. Colors. How do colors affect you? If you resonate with certain colors versus you're not comfortable around certain colors, you've got to actually consider what's happening with your chakras. Chakras are emotional points in the body, which are energetic fields. They actually correlate to different organs and functions. So if we're looking at the pelvis, we're looking at our reproductive system. If we're looking at the stomach, it's the digestive system. If we're looking at the heart, then we're looking at emotions. The thyroid, of course, is speaking our truth and speaking our voice. So if you're in a really controlled environment, say somebody's always telling you what to do and you don't feel like you ever have a choice in how you live your life, your thyroid's going to be shut down, that chakra is going to be shut down, and we're going to end up with thyroid dysfunction. And then your intuition, your third eye, your clarity, your brain. How do you function? Do you feel like you've got brain fog every day, or do you feel like you're quick and sharp and able to function quickly and respond quickly? So how do we detox safely? We've got all these symptoms showing up in our bodies and saying, all right, these things are going on, might need a little bit of support. How do we do it? Well, first of all, you've got to look at your emotional states. You've got to look at your behavior. How do you respond to those situations? Do you get angry? Do you hold it in? Are you suppressing emotions? Or do you lash out and just then have guilt about it? So those behaviors are really, really important for understanding how to detox, because we want to let go of those emotions respectfully, and we need to walk away from a lot of situations that aren't serving us. People buy into anger and drama far too much. With all the reality shows that are on TV, that reality that perspective of reality has really distorted people's behaviors. And so knowing when to walk away, knowing when to say, thank you, my business, not yours, is a really healthy boundary. Other tools that you can use are forgiveness letters. There's a lot of support books out there that you can, and programs that you can look at or coaches that can help you learn how to manage this better. Ion therapy, foot ion therapy, is where you stick your feet into this foot bath, and there's some metal plates. Now, there's some garbage systems out there, and then there's some very good systems out there. You want to make sure you've got one that's got the wristband so that it's monitoring the fields that are going through you. Chelation therapy is generally done with EDTA. Really great for heavy metals. You want to make sure your pathways are open, because if you don't, you're going to feel very ill afterwards. IV therapy goes really, really well with chelation therapy, so that you're supporting the body as a rejuvenation after doing chelation. Hydrotherapy is colonics, and that is where they use warm water to clean out the large intestine, to hydrate it and help move impacted wastes out. I've seen people have perforated bowels as a result. So you want to make sure that you have somebody who's very certified and very experienced, and somebody that's not in a hurry, somebody that's patient and kind and helps you understand the process. Phytonutrients, those are veggie greens, and they want to be vine ripened in order to get the phytonutrients. If you've picked something off the vine before it's ripened, you will not have the same amount of phytonutrients. Mineral wraps and mud baths are all great. You don't want to do them too often, but every few weeks is a great idea because you're pulling the toxins out, but you're also moving them in the bloodstream. And so you want to make sure that you don't do it too often because your system has to be able to move it out of the body. So moderation is a really great thing when it comes to how to detox. Reflexology, great way to move the organs and help them to respond. Massage therapy, Epsom salt baths, sea salts. A lot of people aren't familiar with bowel packs. These are castor oil packs, and what it is a cotton cloth that's soaked in castor oil. You need to make sure that it's organic, certified organic, and you want to soak that cloth in castor oil. You put it on your abdomen, you put a layer of plastic, and then you put a hot water bottle or a heating pad. Now, the key to that is you can use it just over the liver, and you want to be cautious. For some people, if they've got inflammation, we always do a cold pack. And if you're just working with the digestive tract, where you're trying to work with an impacted bowel, with constipation, things like that, or you're trying to soothe the adrenal glands, then you put it hip to hip from the pelvis up to the ribs, and you cover that whole abdominal area. And if you were to do that every night for several weeks, for people who have an impacted bowel or constipation, then it's going to start things moving because it relaxes the nervous system as well as the adrenals and hydrates from the outside in. Foot pads, there's a lot of garbage products out there for that where they just contain sawdust. So you want ones that actually contain chlorophyll and the algae to be able to actually do any good. Poultices are great for people, especially women, who form a lot of cysts. So breast cysts, lymphatic cysts, we use mullein and lobelia for that. Chlorophyll is a great blood builder, blood cleanser. Chlorophyll in tablets is your best way to use it because they are actually pressed algae. If you're using the liquid, they've actually taken some magnesium out, replaced it with copper, which really is not the same value. So use the tablets. Make sure they're organic and make sure it's a clean supplier. Homeopathy, there's some great home kits, but if you're going to use it to detoxify, if you're going to use it for any type of pathology and disease process, if you're using it to heal, you want to make sure that you're working with a certified homeopath. You want to make sure that they are CCH certified or NASH certified, because these are the national governing bodies which look after the homeopathic qualifications. Unfortunately, like any profession, you're going to get your fly-by-night courses and you're going to get your quality courses. So do find somebody who's qualified and certified. Infrared saunas, these are fabulous. The difference between an infrared sauna and a steam sauna is that a steam sauna is the pressure from the outside in, the heat from the outside in, pushing on the body and forcing the body circulation to increase, which then causes the sweating from the heat, versus an infrared sauna, which actually penetrates through infrared waves and shakes the water cells of the body, and that forces the body to detox. So you're actually detoxing from the inside out rather than sweating from the outside in. Exercise and sweating are really, really key. And water, water, water. It doesn't matter what process you choose to do a detox. You want to make sure that you're hydrating with water, at least 25% more than half your body weight in ounces. Exercise, of course, really important for muscle tone. Now, as we age, our muscles become a little bit lax. Our testosterone drops, so we're not getting the muscle tone that we had. Our estrogen drops, so we have more risks of tears in the fascia. So you want to make sure that you're developing muscle tone and keeping your spine and your hips and joints in alignment. If you're working at a 60% heart rate, then you're going to support the burning of calories. And if you're doing any type of bouncing, like on a mini trampoline or in the water with like a water aerobics, then you're working with the lymphatic system, because the lymphatic system has no valves. So we really do want to support that system and move it vertically. And deep tissue massage can work with that too, but that actually can be quite painful. So movement's always a nicer way to look after your body. It improves organ function. It moves the circulatory system. It supports glandular function. It increases endorphins because you get a little bit of a high out of from the adrenals responding. And we have support for inflammation, and we of course have better elimination through the bowel, because that movement actually stimulates peristalsis, which then stimulates bowel elimination. So do it for your life. Even power walking moderately every day, brilliant for the body. So this is just kind of a review on everything I went through for different signs and symptoms that we can look at for different practices, like the chiropractor, iridologist, reflexologist. We can always go through medical tests, but it gives you an idea, if you're paying attention to your body, where do we want to start with the medical tests and go from there. And then, of course, how to do this safely. We've got all the different approaches that I went through. So please be gentle with your body, be respectful and kind, and do not strip the systems, because that is just not fair. It takes so much for our bodies to rebuild. Thank you for joining me today. We'll start to build a few more. Well, we've got some seminars ready to go. I'm going to do some snippets of different seminars too, so you don't have to watch the whole thing, but you get to see some sneak peeks of different parts, like the nail analysis and a little bit more on iridology and some fun snippets, so that you get some brief insights in. Feel welcome to check out our website, insideandoutnaturally.com. And if you have some general questions, I'm able to answer those, but I cannot prescribe or suggest specific remedies or supplements due to liability reasons. But I'm happy to answer general questions if you want to email info@insideandoutnaturally.com. I look forward to working with you in the future. Have a wonderful day.